Good day, farmers, viewers, and visitors. Today I'm releasing my 5 ministerial priorities for agriculture here in the Western Cape. The first one is structured training, education, and research. For us here in the Western Cape, research is very important because agriculture is a science, and a science needs research to back up your policy interventions. So research for us is very significant, both plant sciences and animal sciences. In addition to research, we also promote education, training here at Elsenburg. We are having the oldest agricultural training college, but it is my mission that we must have more agricultural schools here in the Western Cape. In addition, for now, I also want more agricultural subjects to be implemented in schools here in the Western Cape, because I want to create a culture for the love of agriculture throughout here in the Western Cape. The second objective, very importantly for us, is our continuous support to our farmers. We have about 16,000 farmers here in the Western Cape. Farmers are the bedrock of the economy here in the Western Cape. They constitute about 10% of our GDP growth here, and for us, continuous support to our farmers. We have just supported some of our small-scale farmers with some projects for bulls here in the Western Cape. A significant genetic material were handed over to some of our small-scale farmers. It is for us very important to continuously support our farmers. The third strategic objective here in the Western Cape is the whole issue of rural safety. Given what has happened in the recent few weeks, we are seriously concerned about rural safety. And so we have implemented a Rural Safety Ministerial Committee under my leadership to monitor farm attacks and farm murders, but more importantly, to assist our farm watchers and our community neighborhood watchers and the South African police to make our rural areas much more safer here in the Western Cape. The fourth strategic priority here in the Western Cape is market access. We are growing the agricultural sector for both the local markets but also for the international markets. 50% of South Africa's agricultural export goes on the African continent. But for us, it's also significantly important to find our market access into the European Union, to the United Kingdom, to our traditional markets, the United States and Asia. There are big markets waiting to receive our products. And so for us, market access is critically important. And I'm pleased to announce that we were able to significantly reduce the turnaround time for the market access, particularly as it relates to the turnaround time for export at the Cape Town Harbour and the Ports Authority in Cape Town. Very significantly, South Africa is the second biggest producer of citrus fruit. And so for us, it is significant that our fruit exports are also facilitated through the Cape Town Harbour. And I'm pleased with the progress being made at that harbour. But we also need new significant markets like in India as well as in China. 1.3 billion people in China, 1.1 billion people in India. We're also making significant progress to export to Indonesia. There are 260 million people, the biggest Muslim population in the world. In addition, we also have market access into the Middle East because we also want to increase our halal market export into the Middle East. And lastly, significant given what is happening in the world and also here in the Western Cape, the issue of climate change. For us, it is important to support our farmers with innovation and technology to prepare our farmers for climate change and the fourth industrial revolution. So we are using satellite technology to measure the soil content and give that advice to our farmers so that they can reduce the water consumption on their farms. We are seeing great significant progress in this particular regard. These are the strategic priorities of the Western Cape. And I want to thank all the farmers in the Western Cape, all the farmers in South Africa, because without farmers we have no food. And we have seen during COVID-19 the massive contribution of the farming community, of farmers and farm workers all over South Africa to assist us with food relief efforts. We have seen the hearts of farmers, and I want to thank all of you for the significant contribution that you have made for the love of agriculture.
What I want to address today is the post-COVID-19 future of the Western Cape agriculture and agri-processing, and how we as a provincial Department of Agriculture is going to approach this. The important thing at this stage is that for we as a department at a sub-national level, there are certain things that we need to do, and those things that we need to do is determined by the mandate that is received from the electorate at both national, provincial, as well as at the local government level. However, we must always keep in mind that there is a certain reality. That reality is depending on where you come from, what God gives us, or the cards that we were dealt in terms of the natural resources, the people of the provinces, the skills that we have, as well as the structure of the economy. And then, of course, there's always a lot of risks that prevent us from trying to achieve these objectives. These risks can be environmental, social, or economic. The structure of agriculture as we know it in South Africa and in the world is determined by a number of underlying realities. The first is that in agriculture, we are working in space, and this leads to command and control problems. It is not as if we are on a factory floor. If you're on a factory floor, you can stand on a dais and you can see whether the people are doing their job or not. In agriculture, we can't see this. We work in big spaces. The second is the geology, the climate, and the soil on which we produce are leading to a specific envelope of the possible, what you can produce or what you cannot produce. And the wine industry, particularly, is using this very efficiently in terms of the terroir and how they add the spice to the marketing value of their particular product. And of course, we are working with biological factories. No two apple trees are looking the same, no two cows are looking the same. The result is that in this particular environment, it is very difficult to automate what you are doing. Basically, you can only automate what you are doing if you are prepared to destroy the plant, harvesting it or something like that. Now, the combination of these three realities lead to the situation that agriculture is dominated by small, medium enterprises, typically the family farm. And in the Western Cape, we've got about 16,000 of these family farms in our area of responsibility. So, we are believing that at this stage, the environment we are in with COVID-19 will have the same dividing impact that we in the past we talked about 9/11 or after World War II, etc. Because this agriculture, this structure of farming as we know it, are being disrupted by climate. In certain areas of the province, we are now in the 6 years of drought. Fourth, industrial revolution technology are in the process of major disrupting and lead to automation and things like that. Social pressures like job creation, land reform, and now we've also got COVID-19 that are disrupting this environment we are working in. So what we need to do is like in this particular picture, we know the road is turning ahead of us, but what is happening after that? So we need to determine over the medium to long term what is going to happen and how we as a province need to respond to that. So we are busy with 3 policy processes. The first one is the future of farming in arid areas. And basically what we are doing here, it is a diagnostic and design evaluation specifically focused on the arid areas in the province. Because quite often when one do a project on agriculture in the province, your arid areas becomes a chapter or 2 in a much bigger report. We want to focus on arid areas specifically because we want to prevent our farmers to take the turn off to moed verloorse vlakte. We want them to be prosperous in future. So, we are going to explore this structure of farming in the arid areas of the province. We want to use the principles of reimagining, looking totally different at this particular environment. And then we want to link this to the National Spatial Development Framework, use it at provincial level, local government level, etc. The second process we are busy with is we are linking with the national process of the Agriculture and Agri-Processing Master Plan. The purpose of this is job creation, transformation and economic growth, and the approach being used at national is export-focused farming and to link that to district-level value chains. In our case, we believe that for agriculture to grow in the province, irrigation is key. So from our side, we've included 4 irrigation projects. The one is the Brandvlei Dam, increasing the inlet canal, Buffeljas Dam. Everybody knows the wall of the Clan William Dam is going to be raised. And then in the Little Karoo, irrigation canals and development. So that's the 4 projects that we've proposed from our side. However, for us to be successful in the province, there are quite a number of interventions that can only happen at national level. Trade agreements, address non-tariff barriers, trade promotion, some financial interactions, purchasing of land for land reform, sorting out the challenges with water rights, etc. So that are all to happen at the national level for us to succeed at the provincial level. Over the longer term for the province, we are experiencing 2 uncertainties that we do not know how this is going to pan out. The first one is in terms of globalization. The global village that we've been becoming used to over the past few years. Will that continue? Or will we see a trend towards localization? For instance, in the global village, we are now experiencing with COVID-19, everybody is expecting a vaccine to be released very soon, within the next year or so. How will that vaccine be treated within global context? Will certain nations try to claim it for their own, or will it be more readily available? And this is not a new trend. We are experiencing it. We've seen it in Brexit, for instance. We've seen it in the trade war between the USA and China. So COVID-19 has actually only raised the importance of this. So how will this play out in future, and how will this impact on the agricultural sector? We are not sure. The second uncertainty is in our production base. Now, what is important to know is that COVID-19 is different from all other disasters that agriculture has experienced over the past decade. Normally, when you've got a disaster, there's a drought, your veld deteriorate. There's a flood, your roads get washed away. There's avian influenza, you have to cull the ostrich flocks. In the case of COVID-19, our production base remained intact. However, there was a lot of disruption, and with the other impacts in future, like I said, climate change, etc., we are going to experience more disruptions in future. How will the agricultural sector respond to these disruptions? Will we have to make certain changes in the production environment, or will we be able to embrace the 4th industrial revolution? So that brings us then to 4 potential scenarios where we need to focus and where we need to lead towards. The one is focusing more on local innovation. The second is set in tradition, live in that environment. The third one is probably farm local, market in a global environment. And the fourth one is where we have to embrace the 4th industrial revolution, be active on the global market, be the leading light. So in this process, or in developing this, we are currently in the phases where we are in a lot of discussions, and we would really like anybody who've got information or ideas on this post-COVID-19 environment to contact us and to be part of this debate. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and please feel free to contact us if there are any assistance that can be provided.
Well, good day everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share information with you about a very exciting industry, the fresh produce export industry in South Africa. So the industry represents 35% of agricultural exports in South Africa. It's a sizable industry. Also, we're the second largest exporter of citrus in the world. Spain is number one. We're the largest exporter of fresh fruit in the southern hemisphere. Now that is by volume, not by value. The reason why it's not by value is due to the lack of trade agreements with most of the countries that we export to in the east. There's about 3.1 million tons of fresh fruit that we export to more than 100 countries per year. And it's only fresh fruit. We're not referring to processed fruit, fruit juice or anything, only fresh. The value, about 3.3 billion US dollars, depending on the exchange rate, about 50 billion South African rand. And the industry employs 1/3 of all agricultural jobs. If you look at the National Development Plan, in the top right-hand corner, then you'll see the importance of fresh fruit. You can see avocados, mangoes, nectarines, plums, apples, pears, citrus, all of them listed there, very high growth potential, and it's also labor intensive, so a big job creator in the country. Yeah, as you know, in South Africa, we are blessed with various climatic regions. It enables us to grow fruit in all the provinces. As you can see in the Western Cape, about 70% of all the fresh fruit being grown in that province. Okay, so where do we export to? If you look at that map, you'll see the majority still going towards the EU and the UK combined. But we got a big focus on developing the markets in the Far East, Southeast Asia. We see growing consumption in the Middle East of South African fresh fruit, also in Russia. Although Africa is only 5%, it represents almost 1/3 of South Africa's apple exports, so also a growing destination. We use this map sometimes also just to show where South Africa is. So what do we export? Citrus, 60% of all the exports, followed by pome and stone fruit. That would be apples, pears, nectarines, plums, peaches, then table grapes, and then subtropical fruit, and then the other ones, blueberries, cherries, and other smaller fruit types. Just a quick look at vegetable exports. We've just listed a few there. Onions, potatoes, butternut, carrots. It's about 150,000 tons, of which 44,000 tons being sea and air freighted. The destinations, we see most of those going to Africa, followed then by the UK from our vegetable side. And this slide is just to show you the complexity of the export value chain of fresh fruit, to see how many places there are where something can go wrong, and especially in this COVID-19 situation, where we've experienced it in various places and we had to act quickly because we're working with a highly perishable product where temperature is everything and linked to that obviously time. So we can see there the fruit moving from the orchard. If it goes into the pack house, we've got inspections there. And then initially with the onset of COVID-19, we had some of the inspectors from the Perishable Product Export Control Board not allowed to travel. Although they had the permits, it was wrong interpretation by some officials enforcing the rules, the regulations. That put a lot of strain on the system. We had to intervene there. We also see then, if you go into the ports, we had quite a number of problems in the ports due to employees contracting COVID-19, some other employees then not able to work there, and that was in the middle of especially our table grape season as well as stone fruit going out, and then the onset of the citrus season, the ports of Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, Kruger and Durban. We also then had, if you look at the bottom part of the slide, on the destinations where the fruit arrived, there was sometimes congestion in those ports, logistical challenges getting the fruit to the wet markets. Sometimes those markets were closed, the retailers closed in the countries of destination. So everything required quite a lot of intervention from industry. But I must emphasize that we believe in partnerships. So we partnered with the various government departments to ensure that we can find a solution to these problems, because this industry is a positive and solution-driven industry. On a point of interest in this slide again, if you look from the orchard where the fruit is harvested until it gets to the end consumer, on average 40 days. So therefore we can't afford congestion in the ports ships not sailing, trucks not moving, etc. So what were some of the challenges during, and we hope post-COVID, but during COVID as well? It put a renewed focus on our access to new markets, why we need the new markets, especially in the East. Because we also have quite a number of additional plantings, additional fruit that will come on stream within the next year or two where we need to find a home for. And we use the so-called GROW strategy, G-R-O, gain, retain and optimize within the markets. During COVID, we've also seen increased competition in the EU, for instance, where they promoted local produce. Although we are counter-seasonal and we're not competing with the products in the European market on a seasonal basis, you get some products, produce such as apples that you can store for quite a long time, and there might have been then some competition. As I mentioned, the logistics challenges in the ports, I'm glad to say that we are making good progress there, again with a partnership with Transnet, Transit Port Terminals especially. This whole COVID also put a lot of emphasis on the importance of digital trading, the entire environment, the e-certification, for instance, of phytosanitary certificates. Our trade shows that we used to attend every year in Berlin, in Hong Kong, in Moscow, in India, all over the world to promote South African fresh fruit were now either cancelled or virtual or a hybrid of virtual and some physical. So that's also another dimension, and I think we've learned quite a lot for the future as well. I've mentioned the importance of partnerships, and we saw changing consumer trends. In most of the countries where we export to, the very big focus on healthy eating, especially vitamin C. And that is good for our citrus exports as well. That push up the demand, and we see quite a big increase in the export of citrus to the various destinations. So people moving more and more towards then a healthy diet. We also see the importance of convenience. People moved quite tremendously to online shopping. And linked to that would be packaging. The varieties that you get, the so-called easy peelers, that is what your consumer want, and also ripe and ready products. We also saw again a reconfirmation of the value for values. That refers to ethical trading, trade fairly, let me rather put it on that, our fruit traded fairly, a focus on the environment, the importance of the environment again, and again the balance between quality and price. That is always one of the big challenges in the trading environment. Well, one question with a move to online is, what about the sensory experience when buying fresh produce? That we'll need to see what will happen to that. Just mentioned the new markets, some factors that we need to take into consideration when we move into new markets. What are the import duties and tariffs? Do we have reliable trading partners in that country? Do we understand the culture in the market? Is there sufficient demand and growth potential? Do we have manageable phytosanitary protocols? And what does the logistics and cold chain infrastructure look like? And preferably, it must be counter-seasonal. So in summary, again, it's a very important contributor to South Africa's economy. Again, the $3.3 billion, 300,000 jobs. It's a solution-driven industry, a big international footprint, as we said, with the largest exporter of fresh fruit in the Southern Hemisphere by volume, and we contribute quite a lot to South Africa's image abroad within trade shows and other events in which we participate. Thank you very much.
Good day. Just to introduce myself, Hugh Campbell. I'm General Manager of Hawkgrow Science at Hawkgrow. So reflecting on the lockdown, maybe the first factor was, what it highlighted was the value that there is in having an industry body with an effective communication vehicle which can work in conjunction with provincial government to unpack the myriad of information that arrived on one's decks and transport that into, or transfer that into something that was usable for growers. So to have a go-to organization, also an organization that could then address industry-related issues. For instance, the issuing of permits when your labor needed to cross boundaries. So just a quick review of the past season up to date in terms of deciduous fruit. I'm going to be talking basically to pome and stone fruit, apples and pears, peaches, nectarines, plums. This past season could be seen as an acceptable one within the circumstances. Luckily, the lockdown period fell within our pome fruit section, so it had the greatest impact on apples and pears, which luckily could be stored for longer and therefore had a buffer zone. So if we look at the season, our exports were up around about 4% on last year, with our pears down 7%. Not due to COVID, but generally due to production factors. What we saw within this period was a shift in terms of purchasing from wholesale markets to retail markets. So we saw that on the local side with your Pick n Pays, Checkers doing exceptionally well at the expense of the wholesale market. So we saw fair shifts in terms of produce moving in the international market. For instance, we saw an increase of 119% in the volume of apples sent and exported to Russia. So because our stone fruit were only at the tail end of, or the beginning of the COVID period, not so badly affected. However, if we look at the year that's ahead, about 13% of our stone fruit, and talking about berries, 53% of berries are exported by air. And next season, the expectation is in terms of cost, almost a doubling of costs in terms of air freight, as well as availability of air freight is going to be a huge challenge, particularly to those products like cherries, where 99% of the cherries were exported by air. So certainly we will see an impact in the season to come on our local market, and there will be a need to find alternative markets for produce that can't be shipped by air. Concern also relates to early shelf space that air-freighted fruit usually occupied. Looking at the post-COVID period as we move forward, what do we need to look at? But probably the most significant aspect is the aspect of market access, and that's about maintaining existing markets and developing new markets. It was very evident during the COVID period in terms of the importance of having that flexibility of being able to move produce from Bangladesh market to a Russian market. So that, as we go forward in terms of industry, working in conjunction with government, is absolutely critical and is at the top of most probably every exporter's list. As well as the ability to respond to the shifts that are taking place within the market, we saw a definite increase in terms of the buy local campaign, particularly in your European markets, and of course, to our advantage, a move towards healthy eating. So obviously fresh fruit was benefited from that. And as we go into the next season, in terms of a slightly depressed world economy, the flexibility and agility is absolutely critical to be able to respond to those different markets. Again, the value of agriculture and food safety was highlighted during this period, which I think for all agriculture has been critical. And we saw those growers that were very specialized, and particularly if you had only one or two products in a particular range, were at much higher risk than those that had a broader product range. And that relates to the type of product and the markets that you're servicing, as well as the nature of the product. So one of the things that we see very clearly coming through, and if you look at breeding programs, particularly apple breeding programs across the world, Europeans are looking at a 15-month storage period. So that ability to move and store fruit in order to shift it into your marketing slots is becoming more and more of an issue. COVID exposed the fault lines during this period. We saw that in every single aspect of the industry, and I'm just going to talk to one which was highlighted, and that was the crisis that was experienced within the harbour, and particularly the Cape Town harbour. And if we look at what positives came out of that, is that through a need to actually address the situation at hand, there was much greater collaboration that took place between the stakeholders. We've seen a paradigm shift taking place within the formation of PPPs between the exporters, the private sector, and government. And as we go forward, hopefully one will be able to build on those. And the experiences of this last year will hopefully set a platform of a much more improved situation as we go forward. People talk about reverting back to a new normal. One would actually like to speak to a better normal. So whether it be working from home, whatever the new normal is, make sure that that is an improvement. So the challenges that we all sit with is how do you take the lessons learned and actually implement them? Out of adversity, one gets opportunities arise. So I think we've seen that taking place within our grower population. COVID has exposed the importance of compliance, the importance of being able to establish and follow protocols. The deciduous industry has a history of having to comply with many market requirements. For instance, the EU protocols for fruit fly and false codling moth, and various special programs. So that individual discipline that needs to take place at a farm level is then translated into an industry discipline where you have a situation where the actions of an individual farmer have an impact on the rest of the industry. So unless you have that industry discipline and mechanisms in place to actually manage that as we go forward, this is going to become more and more of a challenge and more of an issue. So I think the fact that our industry has been exposed to that in the COVID time, there were certain disciplines and aspects that they were able to implement. What is also extraordinary is the innovation that has evolved, and innovation along with flexibility as growers, pack houses, exporters have had to adapt literally on a daily basis. And that sets the climate for the future, because we know flexibility and ability to adapt is absolutely critical. Lastly, in terms of this short presentation, what is very evident in the South African situation with our current employment status at an all-time high is the critical importance of both industry and government working together to ensure that growth takes place in industries like ourselves, like citrus, like other industries in agriculture that have a high employment rate. So the last comment is that growth within our industry is absolutely critical, and there's a myriad of aspects around that which factor into that. So that's just a very short précis. Obviously, one can go into a lot of depth in terms of all the different aspects. Thank you very much.
Goeiemiddag, my naam is Chris Burgess, ek is redakteur van die Landbou Weekblad en ons sit ons gesprek met die Departement Landbou Wes-Kaap voort. Ek word nou, dis vir my 'n groot voorreg om die minister van Landbou in die Wes-Kaap, Dr. Ivan Meyer, welkom te heet, as ook Dr. Mogale Sebepetsu. Hy is die hoof van die Departement Landbou, ook Dr. Dirk Trotsky, direkteur besigheidsbeplanning en strategie, meneer Anton Kreer, hoofuitvoerende beampte Fruit Produce Exporters Forum, en dan meneer Jacques de Pre, algemene bestuurder by Hortgrow. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your time. I hope we're going to have a good conversation. Dr. Meyer, ek gaan sommer met u begin. Was nou 'n baie moeilike paar maande vir die landbou, nie net uit die oogpunt uit van die COVID-pandemie nie, maar ook daar was ook 'n paar baie ontstellende sekuriteitsaangeleenthede in die landbou in die Wes-Kaap. Jy praat altyd van dat jy die hart van landbou gesien het. Geef vir ons 'n paar net jou indrukke van hoe jy landbou ervaar het in die afgelope paar moeilike maande.
Eerstens, goeie dag aan al die lede van die paneel. Chris, baie dankie. Dit is vir my werklik 'n riem onder die hart. Want in die tydperk van COVID-19 het ek op 'n groter skaal die hart, die siel, die empatie van die landbousektor reg oor Suid-Afrika gesien en veral hier ten opsigte van die voedselverligting. Hulle het na vore gekom toe die regering nie effektief voedselverligting kon hanteer nie, het die boere hier ingegryp en om die waarheid te sê 'n katastrofe vermy. So werklik van die boere gesien, hierdie uitdrukking 'n boer maak 'n plan, het ons meer prakties gesien kry gestalte tydens COVID-19. Humanitêre verligting was kardinaal van belang, veral met die aanvanklike tydperk met COVID-19 en die boere het nie gewag vir die regering nie, want baie van hierdie regulasies is irrasioneel geweest. Die boere het deur middel van hulle eie uitgebreide netwerke saamgekom, met die munisipaliteite gewerk en daar 'n groot verskil gemaak. En ek is werklik dankbaar vir al ons boere, ons landbouers, ons plaaswerkers, ons produsente, want hulle het hier in Suid-Afrika verskil gemaak, soos ook nou onlangs bevestig met Statistiek Suid-Afrika ten opsigte van ekonomiese groeikoers. Ons het gesien in die eerste kwartaal van 2020 het die landbousektor met 28% gegroei en in die tweede kwartaal met 15%. Hier het ons gesien, Chris, die veerkragtigheid van landbou en ek is baie dankbaar vir die boere se groot rol in die verband.
Dr. Meyer, as ek net vir 'n oomblik by u kan vassteek, die COVID-pandemie was een uitdaging, maar en dit is iets wat baie aktueel is op die oomblik en wat boere ook baie bekommer, en dit is landelike veiligheid. Soos ek genoem het, ons het 'n paar redelike teleurstellende, onaangename voorvalle gehad in die Wes-Kaap. Boere is baie bekommerd. Gee net vir ons vinnig u indrukke oor hoekom gebeur dit, wie is die mense wat betrokke is en wat doen die departement, die provinsiale regering om hierdie probleem hok te slaan?
Ja, Chris, dit is hartseer wat gebeur in hierdie tydperk van COVID-19. Ons het gesien toe daar weer 'n verskywing was in die vlakke van COVID-19, het ons weer 3 ernstige gehad van plaasaanvalle hier in die Wes-Kaap. En dit is werklik my hart bloei. Elke keer as ek hoor van 'n plaasaanval of 'n plaasmoord in Suid-Afrika, maar ook hier in die Wes-Kaap, waar die plaasaanvalle, Chris, het ook plaasgevind in die Kaapse wynlande. En soos jy self weet, die Kaapse wynlande, grootste sagte vrugtebedryf suid van die Ewenaar. En dit het 'n geweldige impak ook op die Wes-Kaapse ekonomie, want 45% van Suid-Afrika se landbou-uitvoerprodukte kom hier uit die Wes-Kaap. En dit is hartseer om te sien wat hier gebeur het in hierdie tydperk met ons boere, maar dis nie net die plaasaanvalle, die veediefstal of die plaasmoord nie, Chris. Dis die brutaliteit van hierdie moorde. Ek was op die plaas daar wat Toel Wessels vermoor was, daar in Bonnieville. Die brutaliteit. Ek het die begrafnisdiens bygewoon. Ek het 2000 mense gesien. Boere, hartseer, bitter. En daarom het ek die Wes-Kaapse regering ook versoek om 'n interministeriële komitee in die lewe te roep, sodat ons boere kan help. En ek is die voorsitter van die interministeriële komitee oor landelike veiligheid. En daar het ons besluit om die boere te help. Ek nou is self in die hof, Chris, wanneer daar
plaasaanvalle gebeur, is ek in die hof om borg tot teen te staan. Ons het ook 'n sogenaamde hofmoniteringseenheid hier gevestig, want dit is hartseer wat boere oorkom in Suid-Afrika. En daarom het ons ook 'n landelike tegniese komitee ingestel, fondse beskikbaar gestel vir ons boere, ons plaaswagte word geakkrediteer. Ons het vir advokaat JC Gerber, die hoof van ons hofmoniteringseenheid, en danksy omvattende hulp het ons daarin geslaag, Chris, om ook seker te maak dat 'n persoon wat betrokke was by moorde in die Kaapse wynlande 'n suksesvolle vervolging gehad het, dubbele lewensvonnis en 58 jaar in die tronk. Ek is die minister van Landbou, maar wanneer boere vermoor word, is my fokus op die veiligheid van ons boere.
Dr. Meyer, baie dankie. Ons het ook groot waardering vir die pogings wat die Wes-Kaapse regering aanwend. En met die kundigheid wat ons in die provinsie het, is ek seker ons sal sal ons die probleem suksesvol kan aanspreek, en ons wens u alle sterkte toe. Dr. Sebupetsu, welcome. You are relatively new in the job. You stand at the head of a department that has been voted as one of the best government departments in South Africa. It's a department that does a lot for its farmers. The farmers' days that we attend as agricultural journalists, it's always striking to me with what great fondness farmers speak about their department. What is your vision going forward? Where do you, with the few months that you've been in your position, if you had to sort of just give us a broad-based view, where do you think your priorities will be lying going forward?
Chris, thank you very much. I must also say that there couldn't have been a better time for me to join or to take charge as the head of department. But I think you know that the agricultural sector in the West is one of the important economic sector that delivers on the growth and jobs. So one of my main agenda really is to ensure that this sector continues to contribute to restoring hope of the citizens of the Western Cape. One, by ensuring that there is growth through the support that we provide to farmers. Farmer support is one important priority of this department. My minister can tell you more about that, but this is also an important area. So we're going all out to provide support to farmers. And what does that mean? We provide appropriate, relevant, and responsive extension support to farmers. And we think that is one of the ways through which we can ensure that the sector continues to do what the sector is better, and produce and ensure that there is food security in the province, and ensure that we continue to get forex into the Western Cape. So in a nutshell, really, that is where I see the sector going into the future, but also becoming a pillar, which it is, for the Western Cape economy. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Mogale. Jacques, as ek net vinnig by jou kan inkom, iets wat op alle boere se lippe is op die oomblik is die Kaapse hawe. Dit was 'n groot probleem met ons uitvoere. Ek weet julle ouens van Hotcross se kant het ongelooflike goeie werk gedoen saam met die departement om te beraadslaag en seker te maak dat ons uitvoere plaasvind. Gee ons net 'n bietjie van 'n agtergrond. Wat was die uitdagings? Waar staan ons en is ons nader aan 'n oplossing?
Ja, dankie Chris. Ek glo ons is op 'n baie beter wicket, soos hulle in Engels sê, as wat ons in jare was. So as mens vir die voordele of die silwer randjie van COVID wil soek, is die aandag en die fokus wat op spesifiek die Kaapse hawe geplaas is een van die ligpunte. Saam met die departement was en verskeie ander rolspelers, ander bedrywe, met ons saamgewerk. Dis nie net ons wat die hawe gebruik nie, dis baie ander vrugtebedrywe as ook ander goedere wat die hawe gebruik natuurlik. Saam met die uitvoerdersforum ook gereelde gesprekke gehad met die topbestuur van die hawe owerhede. En die groot probleme was die Kaapstad hawe het vroeër as die ander hawens COVID positiewe gevalle gehad. So doeltreffendheid onder die personeel was 'n groot uitdaging geweest en die hoeveelheid spanne wat die skepe gewerk het was drasties verminder geweest. Maar intussen het die situasie baie verander. Die volumes het daarom afgekom. Of die volumes van ons vrugte wat ons deur die hawe gestuur het die laaste paar maande, sitrus en onsself. So dit het baie verbeter. Hier rondom Junie het skepe 22 dae plus buite die hawe op anker lê en wag om in te kom om op en afgelaai te word. So dit was 'n groot uitdaging geweest vir ons. En daar's gevalle van ons appels wat oor die 100 dae oud was voordat in die hawe oor see en by die markte uiteindelik aangekom het. So as nou 'n nuwe hernieude fokus wat eintlik al verlede jaar begin het, maar nou net vinniger gedryf is om te belê in die infrastruktuur en die toerusting en die personeel en die tegniese aspekte rondom die hawe. En ek glo as daai planne wat voorgelê is deur die regeringsowerhede uitgevoer word, sal ons op die beste plek in die hawe wees wat ons in baie jare was.
Jacques, ek wil hierdie probleem met die hawens is ook nie net 'n Wes-Kaapse probleem nie. Ons weet wat die probleme was in Port Elizabeth met die sitrusuitvoere. Wat is jou sin? Dink jy daar is 'n nuwe gees van samewerking, van 'n nuwe fokus op probleemoplossing onder al die rolspelers? Of is jy maar skepties dat dinge weer gaan teruggaan na normaal wanneer die ergste van die COVID-pandemie oor is?
Nee, ek is optimisties. Soos ek genoem het, die nuwe bestuur van die verskillende owerhede wat by die hawe betrokke is, het baie nou geskakel met ons. Ons is selfs in gesprek oor om vrugte op treine te sit in Grabouw en in Ceres. Hulle kyk na soos hulle noem inland container terminals om die druk op die paai ook te verlig. So daar is 'n verskeidenheid van planne wat voorgelê is en ek glo en ek is optimisties dat daai planne uitgevoer gaan word. Maar jy is ook reg, dis nie net die Kaapse hawe nie, al die hawens het 'n impak op mekaar. As dit moeilik gaan in Durban, het dit 'n effek op die Kaapse hawe ook en vice versa en Kuga kan jy ook insluit, want die skepe doen al die hawens aan. So as hy ergens opgehou word, het dit 'n knock-on effek op al die ander hawens en groot vertragings en groot kostes wat aangegaan moet word, ekstra kostes met logistiek en met die vervoer van op en afry van vrugte ook na hawens wat baie verder is.
Dr. Trotsky, as ek vinnig na u kan oorgaan, het seker een van die moeilikste werke in die landbou om die beplanning en die strategie te doen, veral vir die Wes-Kaap wat in die afgelope paar jare 'n paar daadwerklike uitdagings gehad het. Ons het die droogte gehad, ons het nog steeds die droogte in plekke soos die Klein Karoo wat nog erg deurloop. Daar is die bekommernis oor klimaatsverandering dat hierdie eintlik 'n langtermyn strukturele verandering is in die Wes-Kaap. En dan het ons nou hierdie dwarsklappe soos COVID wat die wynbedryf verskriklik seer gemaak het en daar's groot bekommernis oor veral familieplase binne daai bedryf. Ek weet dis 'n baie breë vraag, maar wat is die dinge wat u die meeste bekommer en wakker hou in die aande? Wat is die een of twee dinge wat jou die meeste bekommer?
Chris, weet ek moet net terugkom en sê, ek het eintlik die beste werk in hierdie hele departement. Ek word 'n klomp geld betaal om interessante vrae te vra en te kyk wat is die geleenthede in die goed vorentoe. En dat 'n mens dan, en aan die einde van die dag, die implementering daarvan word deur my kollegas gedoen. So, dit is eintlik 'n baie goeie werk. Wie jy, ek dink in landbou, daar is 'n klomp uitdagings. En ons in landbou is gewoond aan uitdagings en rampe en die soort van goed en hoe om dit te hanteer. En as 'n mens nou teruggaan en kyk na die droogte wat ons so 'n paar jaar terug gehad het, dit was baie erg vir die boere en in landbou. En Lou het in die vorige paneel het hy 'n bietjie agtergrond gegee oor die navorsing en die impak en al daai soort van goed gaan. Maar landbou is gerad om probleme te hanteer. As 'n mens kyk hoe droogtes hanteer word en die res van die ekonomie is nie gerad om probleme te hanteer nie. As 'n mens gaan kyk hoe die res van die ekonomie gesukkel het met die droogte wat ons nou 2-3 jaar gehad het. As ons nou kyk na COVID-19, in landbou die meeste boere, die ondersteuningsmeganismes weet hoe om krisisse soos byvoorbeeld voëlgriep te hanteer en kwarantyne en inperking en daai soort van goed. So om COVID-19 te hanteer was nie eintlik vreemd vir landbou nie. So vir my wat my wakker lê in die nag is nie soseer die probleme nie. Wat my laat wakker lê in die nag is die geleenthede wat daar buitekant is en wat ons nie noodwendig kan raak sien nie. Geleenthede in terme van markte, geleenthede in nuwe tegnologie, daai soort van goed. So ek dink daar is baie meer geleenthede daar buite as wat ons noodwendig van bewus is. Dankie.
Meneer Creer, and please, if you guys want to answer in English, please feel free. I'm just being biased and looking at the surnames. Meneer Creer, ons praat van geleenthede. Waar vir die groentebedryf, waar lê die groot geleenthede? En wat is daai paar goed wat opgelos moet word om daai geleenthede daadwerklik te ontgin? Ek dink die klank is af. Meneer Creer, ek dink die klank is af. Het ons? Meneer Creer, as jy my kan hoor, ek dink kom ons gaan gou na iemand anders toe tot ons daai klankprobleem kan uitsorteer. Dr. Sebupetsu, if I can come back to you, if you can hear me just until we get Mr. Kruger's sound sorted out. You're sitting with quite a duality in the sense that you are head of a department that serves a highly sophisticated export-driven industry in the fruit industry, but you also have the mandate to support emerging farmers and to support new entrants into the commercial sector. And last year, Landbou Weekblad had an interesting land symposium in Ceres with the Witzenberg Pulse initiative, and there we saw how exciting it is when new entrants into agriculture get a place at the table, specifically with these lucrative value chains, export value chains. Just give us some sense of how you guys, where your thinking is sitting in terms of supporting these new entrants into commercial agriculture.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think for us, both sub-sectors are very important. And that is why about 10 years ago, we've established what we call the commodity approach, which brings the commercial agriculture, working together with ourselves as government and farmer formations themselves to look as to what sort of support is required for each of these subsectors. So for us, these are not competing needs, more complementary. And over the years, we have been able to, we conducted few studies which have also demonstrated that because of the partnership arrangements that we had put in place with the industry, we have been able to see some growth and if you like, graduation of your smallholder farmers getting into full commercial. So our thinking is not one that says one or the other. It is one that says this is one sector, and we're working together with both the commercial agriculture and the new farmers to ensure that we provide the necessary support. I mean, all the industries in the Western Cape have entered into a memoranda of agreement with this department, and that is what is happening. So agriculture provides free of charge mentorship support to new farmers. They also facilitate access to markets, access to technology and research and everything and the like that goes towards supporting the emerging sector. So our frame of mind is one that says this is an important sector, and we've got to sit and we've got solid partnerships going in the province with the commercial agriculture. So for us, it's a plus that we've got such goodwill and commitment of the industry to work together with government, and hence the results that are showing out there in terms of the work we do. Thank you, Chris.
Minister, sorry, HOD, I just want to quickly, the Minister has to leave. Minister Meyer, ek weet u is op pad ergens heen vir 'n ander verpligting. Ek wonder of ek net vir u vinnig kan vra 'n vinnige boodskap aan u provinsie se boere voor u gaan. Miskien 'n woordjie van bemoediging vir die wynbedryf miskien. Ek los dit in u hande.
Eerstens, Chris, laat ons eers die sitrusbedryf ondersteun. I think, let me speak in English. I think firstly, I am deeply thankful for the work that all our farmers have done. We have about 16,000 farmers here in the Western Cape. But I think our job is now to do three things. Firstly, to stabilize the agricultural sector. Secondly, to adapt to the new environment, because COVID-19 is permanently changing everything. And the third phase is to work together with the agricultural sector in moving towards what we call economic recovery. And I think what we are seeing here in the Western Cape, but also in South Africa, is that the agricultural sector is the most resilient sector here in South Africa, and that's a sector that we need to respect and value and appreciate. But Chris, South Africa needs three things. We need a capable state. The Western Cape has a capable state. The Department of Agriculture in the Western Cape is a capable state. Dr. Seppo Petse is an agriculturalist. He has worked 16 years in this department. He's the right man for the job. He's fit for purpose. That's the first thing you need to support agriculture. You need people that know what they're doing. He and Dr. Trotsky are excellent officials, competent. They are part of the requirements of a capable state. Secondly, we need leadership. Leadership from the agricultural sector. That is what we have in all the organizations, both Anton and Jacques here on the show. They are providing excellent together with our farmers, Agri-Western Cape. We're working with excellent leadership. And thirdly, Chris, we need active citizenship. And I think we need good quality citizens in South Africa. And I want to conclude with this. I am now driving a campaign to have more agricultural schools here in the Western Cape. Because when you're a child or a learner at the agricultural school, come out of that school, you have a new quality person. You have a citizen that won't burn down buildings, won't won't burn down tires. But you have a farmer, and the lifeblood of a farmer is to build up, not to destroy. So I'm using agricultural schools and colleges now as a tool to create a better quality citizen. If you look at people who have studied agriculture, you see a quality person that can assist in creating active citizenship. We speak about burgerleer. So die instrument van landbouskole. Ons moet reg hierdie tydperk nou gebruik om meer landbouskole te vestig in Suid-Afrika. En dit is my missie. En ek dink die boere sal ons help om van dit ook 'n sukses te maak. Want die boere het reeds 'n groot bydrae gelewer met die landboustegniese skool, Jace Gerwel skool daar in Bonnievale. Ons het weer eens gesien, die boer maak nie net 'n plan nie, hy voer die plan uit. En dit is die toekoms. En dankie vir die geleentheid om by hierdie paneel saam te spreek. Ek het nou weer 'n ander virtuele meeting, so ek ly ook aan virtuele fatigue. Signing off for the love of agriculture.
Dankie minister, ek wil ook net sê, die sitrusbedryf het nie regtig die ondersteuning nodig nie, dis die wynbedryf wat die ondersteuning nodig het. Baie dankie vir u tyd minister, alles van die beste, ons sal u seker weer raakloop op 'n geleentheid onder in die Weskaap, baie dankie. Meneer Kreer, ek wil net gou kyk of ons u klank terug het, is u met ons?
Ek hoor baie duidelik hierdie kant, Chris.
Fantasties. Meneer Kreer, ek dink, ons hoor jou baie mooi die kant ook. Meneer Kreer, ek dink die vraag was, waar lê die groot geleenthede? Almal praat van die ooste en uitvoermarkte, maar waar lê die groot geleenthede en wat is die een of twee dinge, die groot blokkasies wat ons moet uitsorteer om regtig aan die gang te kom?
Chris, ja, jy is reg, die groot groei geleenthede lê in die ooste. Ons het gesien dat jou Europese mark versadig is tot 'n groot mate. Ons kan nie daardie mark agterlaat nie, ons moet daarby hou, maar die nuwe aanplantings, ek dink sluit aan by wat vroeër gesê is, die positiewe gesindheid van hierdie bedryf, dat daar baie nuwe aanplantings is, daar's groot volumes nuwe vraag wat markte moet kry. En in die ooste is daar die bevolkingsgroei, daar's 'n groeiende middelklas wat kan betaal vir hoëgehalte vrugte, daar's in meeste gevalle goeie logistiek ook, daar is dan die eet van baie van jou mense in die ooste wat vars produk gedrewe is dan ook. So daar is regtig baie groot groei geleenthede. Ons blokkasies is in die eerste plek marktoegang. Om toegang te kry tot daardie markte. Van bedryf se kant af doen ons baie. Die afgelope 6-7 jaar besoek ons daardie lande omtrent 9 van hulle elke jaar. Ons neem deel aan handelsskoue wat ons self befonds in daardie lande. Ons gesels met die invoerders, met die verskillende handelsorganisasies, saam met ons ambassades, hou ons vergaderings met daardie lande se owerhede, want marktoegang is 'n regering tot regeringsfunksie. Maar van bedryf af doen ons baie tegniese werk en ons moet dan ook die bewusmaking skep van hierdie wonderlike produkte wat ons het. So dit is die een kant, is die toegang tot die markte. Die ander kant is dan ook, wanneer ons dan wel toegang het, is die invoertariewe. As 'n mens gaan kyk na ons mededingers, die ander 7 lande in die suidelike halfrond, wat na dieselfde markte toe uitvoer, het die meeste van hulle of vrye handelsooreenkomste of voorkeurhandelsooreenkomste, wat maak dat hulle of tariefvry of met baie laer tariewe na daardie markte kan uitvoer. Suid-Afrika het niks. Ons nie met een van daardie lande 'n ooreenkoms nie, daar's iets aan die gang met Indië. Praat van Indië, ek dink ek het voorheen genoem ook dat ons betaal tussen 32 en 53% invoertariewe. Met ander woorde, as ons vrugte daar aankom, is dit klaar soveel persent duurder as die mededingers. Maar ten spyte daarvan, omdat ons hierdie hoë gehalte vrugte het, betaal die verbruiker daarvoor. Maar ons is in gesprek met die regering oor hierdie tariewe. Dit is 'n gekompliseerde ding, maar goed ja, dit is die marktoegang en dis die tariewe vir daardie markte. Miskien het 'n derde aspek dan wat eintlik interessant is die bewustheid van eerstens Suid-Afrika as 'n vrugte-produserende land, 'n vrugte-uitvoerland, en dan ook tweedens dat die mense nie bewus is van die tipe vrugte wat ons alles hier het nie. Ons kan regtig van jou sagte vrugte, reg sitrus en subtropiese vrugte in Suid-Afrika produseer en uitvoer. So daarom neem ons aan die handelsskoue deel, sodat mense van ons kan weet, wat is Suid-Afrika, kan weet wat Suid-Afrika kan aanbied, en as ons sê nie by die skoue teenwoordig is nie, en ons mededingers is daar, dan kan die vraag ontstaan, maar hoekom is Suid-Afrika nie daar nie? Beskoue hierdie mark is nie belangrik genoeg nie, hierdie skoue is nie belangrik genoeg nie, en sommige van hierdie handelsskoue, in van die oosterse lande veral, as mens daar deelneem, waarborg dit vir jou dan ook 'n vergadering met die besluitnemers van die regerings in daardie lande. So alles prosesse wat ons probeer om ons marktoegang te kry. Dan het ons nou sopas 'n paar dae gelede gehoor dat ons na 11 jaar toegang vir sitrus na die Filippyne gekry het. Dit was 'n 11 jaar lange proses. So vir hopelik die volgende seisoen kan die sitrus uitgevoer word aan Filippyne toe ook. Wat op die oomblik tot nou voor hierdie besluit het ons toegang vir vrugte na die Filippyne toe. Dankie eers, Chris.
Baie dankie. Ek wil vinnig net nog gevra vir Jacques en dan vir Dr. Trotsky. Jacques, net vinnig. Vir die produsente daar buite. Wie was die groot in terme van vrugte? Wie was die groot wenners en die verloders in hierdie hele COVID pandemie wat so baie ontwrigting veroorsaak het?
Ek wil miskien net voor ek daai vraag antwoord net by Anton bylas. Hy het of jy het verwys na die ooste nou, maar ons moet glad nie vergeet van Afrika nie. Afrika is ons, as jy die plaaslike mark bytel, ons enkele grootste mark vir appels. En ek glo dat die ander vrugsoorte ook in die toekoms sal volg. Dis op ons agterstoep en ons kompetisie in die noordelike halfrond en die suidelike halfrond begin al meer na Afrika ook kyk. En as ons kyk na die populasiegroei wat daar voorspel word, is dit een wat ons definitief moet dophou. Ekskuus, terug by jou vraag, die wenners en die verloders, as mens nou vir algemeen, het ons meer vrugte hierdie jaar na Europa en die VK en Rusland uitgevoer, en daar was 'n definitiewe skuif gewees vanaf lande en markte wat grootliks gebaseer is op groothandel en die informele markte, soos 'n Bangladesh en 'n Indië en baie van die ander oosterse lande wat die verbruikers natuurlik glad nie by die markte kon uitkom weens lockdown en wat die markte ook glad nie aan die gang was nie. So daar's 'n ek wil sê die retail gedeelte en die online gedeelte het dramaties gegroei ten koste van die groothandel en die informele markte op die stadium. Gelukkig het ons steenvrugte betyds klaargemaak en net so half hulle sterkkant het die groot impak van COVID gevang. Appels en pere is bietjie meer verdraagsaam teenoor hierdie verbrekings en hierdie onderbrekings met verskeping en die lang verskeping. So dit het hom so 'n bietjie gered aan daai kant.
Dirk, vinnig net, baie dankie Jacques. Dirk, net vinnig ter afsluiting, wat ek baie interessant gevind het in jou voorlegging was, wanneer jy beskryf van die reimagining van sekere areas, in terme van julle strategie, julle beplanning en julle strategie op die pad vorentoe, en ek dink aan plekke soos die Klein Karoo, wat nou, dit is amper onontbeerlik, die nog steeds in die verskriklike droogte sit. Dit was altyd 'n baie belangrike vrugteproduserende area. Daai bedryf het baie lelik seer gekry. Geef vir ons 'n voorbeeld oor hoe jy so streek sou herbedink, reimagine en hoe sou daai proses lyk?
Vra my dieselfde vraag so oor 2 of 3 maande, ek dink dan kan ons vir julle 'n baie beter en goed deurdagte antwoord gee. Maar net vinnig, ons sit nou, ons sit almal hier so met vierkantige oë, want ons raak gewoon daaraan om via die internet en met e-media te kommunikeer. 6 maande terug sou niemand daaraan gedink het nie. So skielik sit ons met 'n situasie dat meer professionele mense begin die vraag afvra, moet ek elke dag 2 na 3 ure in spitsverkeer sit om in die stad uit te kom? Ek kan mos van my huis af werk, en as jy daai vraag begin vra, dan moet jy begin vra, maar waar is my huis? Hoe skuif ek my huis na 'n plek toe waar ek 'n sekere leefstyl kan hê? En heel dikwels is daai leefstyl op die platteland. Nie noodwendig in 'n dorp nie, maar op plase en die soort van goed. So as 'n mens begin vra na 'n herbedink die toekoms van landbou in 'n spesifieke area, dan moet 'n mens ook sê, maar wat is die ekonomiese aktiwiteit in daai area? Party mense sê jy moet met sonkrag boer. Ander mense sê jy moet ander tipe van energie. Een manier, ekonomiese aktiwiteit is, hoe trek ons 'n nuwe generasie van entrepreneurs na daai area toe, wat van hierdie landelike areas, van die ariede areas, die Klein Karoo of die Groot Karoo, van daar af kan sit en hulle werk begin doen. So ek dink daar is, as 'n mens begin weier kyk as net jou primêre landbouprodukte, is daar in ander forme van waarde toevoeg tot hierdie area, is daar groot geleenthede. En ek dink dit is iets waaroor 'n mens sou kon gesels vir die volgende halfuur, maar ek aanvaar jy's gedruk vir tyd, so dis 'n kort antwoord op 'n potensieel baie lang en indrukwekkende vraag.
Wat natuurlik die vraag laat ontstaan, wat gaan met ons stede gebeur? Want ek sien meeste mense gaan nie terug na hulle kantore toe nie, so daar gaan groot kantoorblokke nou leeg staan in die middestad van Kaapstad. Mogali, Dirk, Anton, Jacques, baie dankie vir julle tyd. Thank you very much for your time. Mogali, especially you, all the best for the new job. We wish you all the best and every success. Dankie vir julle tyd. Ons het uit tyd gehardloop. Lekker om te gesels. Ons sien julle weer in die Weskaap. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our conversation with the Department of the Western Cape. I hope you enjoyed it. It was another segment in the Agri Extra part of NAMPO Virtual. Thank you very much and hope to speak to you soon. Thank you.